But welcome to a joint session by the City of St. Paul, the City of Minneapolis, and the International Institute to discuss the benefits of naturalization, both to the individual and to the cities in which they live. On behalf of the City of Minneapolis, the City of St. Paul, and the International Institute, I'd like to welcome everyone here, and I'd like to really discuss today the benefits of naturalization. My name is Edmundo Lijo. I am an assistant city attorney with the City of St. Paul, and I manage the city's Office of Immigrant and Refugee Program. Our mission is to ensure that St. Paul continues to be a welcoming place to live for all residents, including immigrants and refugees, by facilitating the successful integration of immigrants and refugees into St. Paul, advocating on behalf of immigrant and refugees communities in St. Paul to ensure justice and equity for all city residents, and to promote a citywide culture that values and benefits the inclusion and economic benefits which all members of society receive when immigrants and refugee communities are successfully integrated into our civic, economic, and cultural life. In support of this mission, our Immigrant and Refugee Program has developed a legal defense program jointly with Ramsey County and the Rivera Institute for Justice, which provides legal representation to Ramsey County individuals that have been detained by ICE. In addition, we are working on programming that provides tools and resources to help our immigrant and refugee communities understand the ever-changing immigration laws and policies and how those policies and laws affect their lives. Part of those efforts are today's session on naturalization. We will be providing future sessions specifically regarding naturalization and the citizenship process, with our next session occurring in October. So please stay tuned. Notice will be sent out as we will be doing another joint session with the International Institute and the City of Minneapolis on the naturalization process itself for individuals. I'd like to introduce Michelle Rivera, the director of the Minneapolis Immigrant and Refugee Affairs Office, and have her tell you a little bit about her office as well. Michelle?
Super. Thank you so much, Edmundo. My name is Michelle Rivera. I'm the director of the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs for the City of Minneapolis. This office was created in July of 2018 with the purpose of improving the stability and situation of immigrant and refugee communities in the City of Minneapolis by ensuring that elected officials, city leaders are aware of immigration developments and understand the impact that these developments have on our immigrant and refugee community members, by ensuring that community members themselves are aware of these same developments and understand where to go to obtain assistance in order to obtain greater immigration security. The City of Minneapolis also partners with several nonprofit organizations, immigration legal service providers, to ensure that people are not prevented from accessing the services of an immigration attorney based on an inability to pay. Working together with city leaders and with residents, we are developing strategies to ensure greater safety and security of our immigrant and refugee communities. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Now I'd like to introduce Corleen Smith. She's the Director of Immigration Services at the International Institute. Corleen, can you tell us a little bit about the International Institute?
Good morning. The International Institute serves just over 4,000 people each year from over 100 countries. Of those 4,000, we're helping just over 1,000 people each year to naturalize and become new citizens. Our services in St. Paul are a variety of services helping new Americans with workforce development, English classes, everything from beginning English all the way through preparing for college and navigating the college system. We also have refugee resettlement, so we're welcoming new refugees into the country, and then, of course, immigration services as well.
Thank you, Corleen. We chose today, September 17th, because it is Citizenship Day. It is also the 233rd anniversary of the signing of the U.S. Constitution. So it is a day that we should reflect upon the meaning and importance of U.S. citizenship. This country was founded on some very high ideals. We have not always met those ideals, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't strive to meet those ideals and make those ideals and those rights and privileges available to everyone in our society, especially now amid the enduring public health and economic crisis. Since sustaining an inclusive community where no one is left behind is more important than ever. This week is also Welcoming Week. Welcoming Week brings together immigrants, refugees, and longtime residents in person and online, especially nowadays, online and virtually, in a spirit of unity to build strong connections across communities and affirm the benefits of welcoming everyone, including newcomers. This year, Welcoming Week will take place under the theme of Creating Home Together. I'm also very excited to announce that the cities of St. Paul and Minneapolis were awarded a data grant from the New American Economy. Both our cities were among just 12 communities that received the New American Economy's research to inform culturally sensitive emergency response measures that ensure all residents are included regardless of immigration status. Both cities have received customized research reports and demographic nuances of the region's immigration population and will inform the advocacy, development, and implementation of inclusive local emergency responses to COVID-19. We're very excited about this research. Michelle and I will be addressing and citing parts of those reports throughout this discussion. The full report will be made available on the comment section on the Facebook Live stream, so you will be able to access those reports if you would like to take a further look. With that, let's get into what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about the benefits of naturalization to the individual, benefits to the cities in which they live. Then we'll talk a little bit about the barriers to naturalization and how cities can assist people to overcome those barriers. With that said, Corleen, can you start us off on discussing the benefits to the individual?
So first, when someone is interested in becoming a citizen, we're going to have to figure out how they first qualify for U.S. citizenship. You have to be a permanent resident or have a green card. You may have heard of some different immigration programs like TPS, Temporary Protected Status, or DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. These are just two examples of immigration programs that don't offer permanent residency. They're not offering a path to citizenship. So if you're in these programs, this is not going to give you residency or citizenship. To apply for citizenship, you have to have residency or your green card for 5 years. You have to be able to read and write in English and answer history and government questions in English. In addition, there is a filing fee. And currently, at least for the next few days, there is a fee waiver available, and we'll get into that in a little bit. Also, of course, with many things with immigration, it's just a matter of waiting, because currently the processing time for citizenship is close to 2 years once you submit your application. I should also note that you may have heard of a recent program referred to as LRIFA, which stands for Liberian Refugee Immigration Fairness Act. So this is a type of program that's available to some Liberians in the United States that qualify. And if approved, they would be granted permanent residency and then would be eligible for citizenship. As you may know, there are a large population of Liberians living in the Twin Cities, and we encourage those that are eligible to apply so that they can then apply for citizenship as well. Talking about benefits for citizenship, an individual and their family have many benefits once they become a citizen. The clients that we see at International Institute are primarily interested in voting and having their voice heard through the power of the vote. In addition to voting, people, of course, once you're a citizen, you're eligible to be on a jury. You can also run for public office. But there are also many economic opportunities that our clients and the clients that I see at International Institute, they are able to gain usually an increase of around 8 to 11% of their earnings once they become naturalized. And that's in comparison to other people who are also eligible to naturalize, but haven't taken that final step of becoming a citizen. Also, naturalized citizens, studies show that they are twice as likely as non-citizens to be homeowners. So all of these different aspects are giving them an opportunity to increase their economic opportunities and really make themselves a part of the community that they live in. Again, the main things that we are seeing at International Institute with the clients that we serve are the opportunity to vote and really have a voice. When I talk to clients about why they want to become a citizen, it's very natural to them. They say, I am here to stay. This is my home. I belong here. I'm part of the community, and I want people to know that, and I want my voice heard. There's also immigration benefits as well. Clients that we see, there's a protection from deportation once you're a citizen. If you're not a citizen, if you have a green card or an employment card, there's always a possibility of being deported. Once you're a citizen, you can also give citizenship to your minor biological children that live with you. So it's much easier for those children to become citizens. Also, another benefit is being able to reunify with other family members. You can sponsor family, and some family members are eligible for a green card as well. Also, I should point out a benefit is the freedom to travel. Recently, actually just this week, I had a gentleman who had traveled outside of the U.S. and then got stuck out of the U.S. due to COVID. And he wasn't able to come back in right away, and he was out of the U.S. for more than 6 months. He was not aware that this was an issue, and so we ended up talking about that. And of course, once you're a citizen, you will be able to travel outside of the U.S. freely, and then you also have the protection of the U.S. passport and U.S. embassies if you happen to need any kind of help or protection while you're outside of the U.S. So those are just a few of the individual benefits that the clients and the people that are becoming naturalized citizens have. Let's turn to Michelle. She's going to talk about benefits that the community sees. Michelle?
Sounds good. Thank you. And I think, Edmundo, I'm not sure if you wanted to briefly touch on people asking questions in the chat.
Yes.
There's a message
on that. Yes. We will be leaving about 10 minutes at the end for questions. You're welcome to post your questions in the comment section on the Facebook Live posting. And those questions will be referred back to us, and we'll address those questions at the end of the session. Thank you.
Super. So I'll just briefly talk about some of the community benefits to acquisition of U.S. citizenship. And thank you so much, Corleen, for laying out the individual benefits. Really, the individual benefits, some of which Corleen went through, translate into very important benefits for the communities in which naturalized immigrants live. For example, and there is some reported information that will also be included in the chat, a 2018 report from Cities for Citizenship, National Partnership for New Americans, and the Center for Popular Democracy indicates that there is an increase in individual average earnings of between $2,200 and $3,200 when an individual transitions from permanent residence to citizenship based on their ability to obtain a higher paying job and a better job. When you look at that breakdown from a municipal standpoint, just looking at the two cities, St. Paul and Minneapolis, the estimated eligible to naturalize population in the city of St. Paul is approximately 6,900 people. So if you do the math, and Edmundo, I know that you did, that turns into an increase in total tax revenue of between $15 million and $22 million. An increase in income of between $15 million and $22 million, which turns into a total tax revenue increase of between $5 million and almost $8 million. For the city of Minneapolis, the breakdown is similarly noteworthy. The estimated lawful permanent resident eligible to naturalize population is approximately 8,700 people. Just looking at the math, that could increase the individual income from $19 million to $27 million, leading to an increase in total tax revenue of an estimated $6.7 million to $9.7 million. And if people are interested in learning more about the eligible to naturalize population, there is an excellent project that was initiated by the University of Southern California, Dornsife, and a link to that that data. And it's really interesting to kind of navigate that site and sort of see, hover over different populations to identify based on where people are, how many individuals are eligible to naturalize, not just naturalization, but also DACA information there as well. So looking at this potential growth in individual spending power, higher GDP, increase in tax revenues, it's clear that there is a significant economic incentive for communities to invest in naturalization acquisition efforts. I also want to mention another benefit that perhaps doesn't come to mind immediately, but also relates to services that municipalities and states end up covering versus services that could be covered by the federal government once a person obtains citizenship. The acquisition of citizenship helps to alleviate burdens on city, county, and state governments because of the fact that U.S. citizens qualify for federal programs and benefits that people who aren't U.S. citizens do not qualify for. A couple of examples. Briefly, most permanent residents who've been here for less than 5 years are ineligible for medical assistance, which is federally funded, but single adults are eligible for Minnesota Care funded by the state. So for people who are eligible to become citizens in 3 years, it helps the state of Minnesota because medical care can be paid for by the federal government. If people are interested in more information on benefits that non-citizens versus citizens qualify for, there is an excellent resource, and we'll add this to the chat as well, some research that was done by the state of Minnesota on benefits and who qualifies. So with that, I think we're transitioning to the threats or barriers to acquisition of U.S. citizenship and what communities can do. I think, Corleen, we're back to you.
Yes, thank you. So thinking about barriers to citizenship, one of them, I would say there's probably around 3 or 4 main barriers that people have when they're interested in applying for citizenship. The first is the inability to read, write, and speak in English. Many of the clients that we see at International Institute are refugees. They've had they've had many years living in refugee camps where they've had disrupted education. Access to education has been very limited. A lot of the refugee clients that we see are elderly and have suffered a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder, have a lot of anxiety and also depression, and those can be barriers to having the ability to learn a new language and really having to start over and gain that language ability in order to become a citizen. Another barrier to applying for citizenship is the application process itself and the need for legal support. If you can imagine, you have a 20-page citizenship application with lots of technical vocabulary that you're not used to using on a regular basis, and figuring out how to answer the questions correctly can be very intimidating. Small errors, maybe you forgot to sign inside the box, maybe you missed a question. All of those types of things can delay the process. Your application could be returned if you didn't complete the checks correctly, if you had to pay for the application. So all of those things are going to delay the application as well. International Institute helps people to answer questions about the process. Things like changing addresses and finding out what the status of the application is. Those things can be all very overwhelming if you have to contact immigration and work through a phone tree. So International Institute really helps to bridge the process for the client so that they can just contact us directly and say, hey, I need to change an address. I have a question. I got this paper in the mail. I don't understand what's happening with my application process. So a barrier, again, is really the application process itself and the need that clients have for legal support to work through the application process and have the support of an agency and a person to go through that with them. The third barrier that we can really highlight currently for citizenship is the fee. You may have heard that the fee for citizenship is increasing. It's going to be increasing the beginning of October. It's going to increase by 83%, which is devastating for our clients and people that are interested in citizenship. Currently, the fee is $725. And it will be going up to $1,170. So if you can imagine, that really is the first ever wealth test for citizenship. It really is only going to be accessible to people who have the money to apply. Currently, there is a fee waiver process, and 70% of the clients that we see at International Institute qualify for that fee waiver. So that means that they are under 150% of the poverty guidelines. But again, that fee waiver option is going away in October, along with the fee increase. So again, fee waivers are being abolished and fees are being increased. So essentially, of the over 1,000 people that International Institute helps with citizenship each year, 70% are going to have a barrier because they're no longer going to have access to that fee waiver because it's no longer going to be an option. In addition, you can imagine the COVID situation and the pandemic that we're seeing right now is also exacerbating a lot of the access to citizenship. Many of the clients that we see at International Institute are in essential industries, food industries like meatpacking areas, like I said, food service, cleaning services. Those folks have either lost their jobs or they're in a type of job where maybe someone gets ill, and so then the person has to go on quarantine for a few weeks and have their hours reduced. So a lot of people are seeing an economic impact, and being able to pay for citizenship has been more difficult with the reduction in hours or the reduction in pay because of the COVID situation. Also, because of COVID, there's also been a lengthening in the process of actually getting citizenship. So before COVID, it was taking about a year and maybe 4 to 6 months to become a citizen. And right now, because immigration had to put off doing appointments and other types of procedures, the application process now is probably close to 2 years, but really it's still kind of trying to figure out if it might even be longer than that. So 2 years can really be overwhelming for our clients. I just saw a client yesterday, and he said, "Oh, I'm so excited to vote in 2 months. I can't wait." And I had to give him the very sad news that he can vote probably in 2 years. So we really want to stress with people that we don't want to have another election go by where you can't vote. So we really want to encourage people, again, citizenship now, because the time that it takes is really long, and we really want to make sure that you can vote as soon as possible. Let's hear from Michelle about what communities can do to help with these barriers.
Super. So thank you. I remember my mother became a citizen about 15 years ago, and she thought it was ridiculous that anybody would have a lawyer. Why would you need a lawyer to do that? And I can say that things have changed so significantly in 15 years. And one example of things that communities can do to address barriers to citizenship is ensure that as many people as possible have access to a competent legal service provider in the citizenship application process. From the standpoint of the city of Minneapolis, we are committed to ensuring that people have access to counsel, including in the naturalization process, and work with several legal service providers to assist people in the naturalization application process, because now more than ever, it is important to be aware of potential pitfalls in the application process to ensure that you are qualified to apply before you actually apply. So increasing access to legal representation for individuals who are unable to pay the services of a private attorney is an important way that communities can address barriers to citizenship. Another is creating naturalization hubs, and I'll just give the example of the City of St. Paul naturalization hubs at local libraries. The St. Paul Public Library, St. Paul Public Schools, and community partners provide programming and referral assistance for residents who are interested in learning English and preparing for the civics portion of the naturalization test. And I can attest that Hennepin County libraries have been engaged in the same type of work. Another important way to reduce barriers is by eliminating the financial barrier to entry. Corleen was talking about the significant increase in filing fees that are anticipated to take effect on October 2nd. It is not just International Institute that sees that will have a critical impact on people's ability to obtain citizenship and greater immigration security through citizenship. This is going to impact people across the state of Minnesota. We've already provided stats regarding the St. Paul and the Minneapolis eligible to naturalize population. There are significantly more people in greater Minnesota who would potentially likely be impacted by this increase in filing fees. So identifying a way to overcome this financial barrier is really incumbent upon all of us. Some ideas include developing a partnership with a bank or credit union to create a low-interest loan program for naturalization fees, offering naturalization scholarships where the full fee is actually paid, community donation, foundational support. I remember one example several years ago when there was a news posting about DACA, Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, and there was a story about how a person couldn't pay their DACA application fee, and that's why they didn't file, which led to a ballooning of generosity where people started donating money that ended up being organized by one of the legal service nonprofit organizations to assist in paying DACA filing fees. That's a creative solution, as well as other innovative ways to help people with English language learning and the citizenship test. And we encourage people to reach out to us if you have ideas or are interested in supporting naturalization efforts in these or other ways. I know we're turning it over to why should we find creative ways to address barriers to citizenship, and that's Edmundo. And before we do, maybe Edmundo, this might be an appropriate time to just quickly show people our NAE stats for Minneapolis and St. Paul. And I will try to do it if it's okay, quickly, and then maybe you can do yours too. Here we go. All right, can you all see the screen here? These are the New American Economy. This was the result of a research grant that we were awarded, and it kind of gives a snapshot of the demographics and socioeconomic data for City of Minneapolis. And Edmundo, perhaps you can pull up yours for St. Paul too. This is just a snapshot, and the links have been included just to sort of show you, the immigrant population in the City of Minneapolis, 15.4%. So quite a sizable population. And then there are some additional stats too that are useful. Just pointing up, what is the reason to support people's efforts to acquire citizenship. You can also look at some of the socioeconomic issues, like how many immigrants work in the food sector industry, how many in healthcare, how many people do not have health insurance, and then how many among immigrant households, how many own their homes, how many are renters, kind of pointing up to some of the factors that are especially relevant in light of the pandemic. So I'll turn it over to you, and I will stop sharing my screen here in a second. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Michelle. Can you guys now see my screen as well? We have a similar report to what Michelle was just showing you, specific to St. Paul, but we also have a graphic here that we were given comparing the two cities together, because there was a press release done today, joint press release with the City of St. Paul, City of Minneapolis, and the New American Economies to announce these studies, the release of these studies. And I like this graphic because it kind of shows Minneapolis and St. Paul together. So for our purposes of our discussion today, I think this is very helpful. Minneapolis has, as Michelle indicated, over 65,000 immigrant residents in their city. St. Paul, just under 59,000. We are approximately 19.4% of our population are immigrants. And why is finding solutions to the barriers to naturalization so important? About a little over 49% of that 59,000 have already naturalized. So those are naturalized citizens living in St. Paul. That means that 50% of that number are not naturalized. They're not citizens, and they are in a wide range of statuses, anywhere from undocumented to permanent residents. One of the ways that we try to promote a welcoming community is to make sure that people feel safe in our community, that when the police come to their neighborhoods or the fire department, they're not afraid to talk to the police. They're not afraid to talk to the fire department. Because, if my house is on fire and my neighbor is afraid to talk to the fire department, my house is going to burn down. So it doesn't make us a safer community. We really need to think about how can we become a safer community. So one of the ways is to have as many people as we can naturalize, because then they're kind of immunized from deportation and removal. Their families are protected, and it makes them feel safer and want to participate more in our communities. So it does help to make our cities more welcoming. It also increases community well-being and safety. There is a lot of mental health and physical health impacts that are related to deportation. It creates a tremendous amount of stress on a family, and that stress oftentimes shows itself through mental and physical illness. Removals also destabilize communities. There's a great case study, I believe it's Pottsville, Iowa, of a raid that was done in 2008 and how it completely devastated the economy of that small town in Iowa. So if you go out on YouTube, you can just search Pottsville. You will find a wonderful documentary on the effect of that community. But I say wonderful because at the same time, that documentary shows how it was another immigrant community moving to Pottsville that saved that local economy. When a lot of the Latinx community was deported from Pottsville, a Somali community came in and moved in and actually saved that economy. So it was the loss of the immigrants that really hurt the economy, and then it was bringing back immigrants that saved that economy. And I think that's a true story across a lot of the Midwest. So there's a lot of economic opportunity for our immigrants, our communities. They tend to be entrepreneurial. They tend to need access to credit. So we need to be more creative about how we assist our immigrant refugee communities. But one of the ways that we can assist them is to help ensure that they do become citizens of the United States. Also, once someone is naturalized, they can vote. And organizations across the country are starting to realize that newly naturalized citizens have a lot of political clout. The Partnership for New Americans did a study, and we're going to post a link to 2 studies they actually done, about the power of newly naturalized citizens in the 2020 election. The study, I believe, begins in 2014, and since 2014, over 5 million. We have over 5 million new citizens naturalized in the United States. Since the last election, we have, I believe, over 3 million new citizens. Those citizens have incredible power. And if you look at the reports, they have the ability to actually change the outcome of elections in 15 different states where their number of new citizens outnumbers the difference in the outcome of the presidential election in that state from 2016. So they have, if they vote in large numbers, they're going to have an effect on the outcome of the presidential election. So there is a lot of power, and I think communities need to realize that new citizens voting will have an impact. That also means that new citizens can become civically engaged. They can run for public office. They can participate on boards and commissions at the local and state level, which will impact policy and how we do things in our cities.
Hey, Edmundo, I know that you wanted to address banking and financial literacy too, and I'm also wondering whether you want to pull that slide from your screen, and then I also wonder whether you want to address questions and identify when people can ask questions too. Just because we're at 10:47, want to be respectful of people's time.
Yeah, I'll do that quickly. I also think that there is. A lot of benefit to assisting people. One of the biggest barriers, of course, is the financial barrier to naturalization. Other cities have created low interest loans to help people naturalize, and that's something that our cities could look at doing. But in addition, when those credit unions and banks and other cities have created these low interest loan programs, they've realized there is a wonderful opportunity to also help with financial education. They can provide education on credit scores, how to manage money, how to manage debt. Nationally, 13% of immigrants are unbanked. They don't bank, which means they don't have a bank, which means that they are often subject to predatory lending practices. They have to go to payday loan companies. They, they have to cash their checks at places where, they have to pay high fees. So there's opportunities also to really educate new citizens about financial literacy, and really and help them to avoid these predatory practices, which would have a benefit for the city as a whole as well. Some last thoughts on action steps that we can take. I'll just close up and turn it over to Corlin, and she can kind of maybe close out with a few action steps. Corlin?
Perfect, thank you. So hopefully you've gotten some things to kind of get you thinking, and we really want to encourage all of you to really reach out to your congressperson, your U.S. senator. We really want to promote the greater access to citizenship. We really need to stop the idea of this wealth test for citizenship, and that you have to be a wealthy person in order to become a citizen. That is not what citizenship is about. Citizenship is really about access and really becoming a part of your community and making your vote heard. Citizenship should be available to everyone that qualifies, regardless of what they can pay for the process. We'd encourage you also to support in organizations. There's a lot of organizations in the Twin Cities area that help people with the citizenship process. Immigrant Law Center, Advocates for Human Rights, Mid-Minnesota Legal Aid, Minnesota Council of Churches, Lutheran Social Services. Those are just a few of the places that help with citizenship. We encourage you to, again, financially support them, but also all of those organizations have great volunteer opportunities as well, helping in English classes, citizenship classes. Also, just things like making a reminder call is also very helpful for our organizations to make reminder calls out to clients about the process that they're going through as well. Learn about the policies that affect citizenship and access to citizenship. It really is about who is eligible for citizenship and who has access to citizenship. And Michelle is also going to share some action steps as well at the local level that you can do as well. And a reminder, if you've got questions that you're interested in, you've got access right now to the City of St. Paul and the City of Minneapolis and International Institute. Like I said, we serve over 1,000 people every year with citizenship. We'd love to answer your questions. So again, please post them for us, and we'd love to share our thoughts with you.
Super. So I would close out by strongly encouraging people to promote initiatives to increase acquisition to U.S. citizenship at every level, whether at the neighborhood level, city, county, or state level. There are many innovative ways that people can support citizenship efforts. And I'll just mention one that's through the state of Minnesota. Department of Human Services has an initiative to increase access to citizenship for people who have serious medical conditions so that they can transition to citizenship and qualify for federal health programs that they cannot qualify for as permanent residents. It is a recognition of the fact that citizenship helps certainly the individual in accessing these programs, but also assists government in reducing costs that that otherwise would inure to state government as opposed to the federal government. I also want to reiterate that the creation of scholarship and loan programs are initiatives that have begun in municipalities. There are partnerships between foundations and municipalities, private and public foundations, and that is an area where inspiration is very meaningful, particularly now given that filing fees are set to increase so significantly. And just to ensure that since this is Citizenship Day, we're also making a plug for civic engagement. Whether people are naturalized or even if they're not, there is so much value in working together to identify ways to participate in civic life. And that includes completing the census, participating in a city board and commission, and engaging in other forms of advocacy. So I'll turn it over to Edmundo.
Thank you, Michelle and Corleen. I really would like to really emphasize some of the things that Michelle and Corleen have stated, especially about around voting. Once people are naturalized, they should register to vote. We can assist. I know the League of Women Voters and as we mentioned earlier, the National Partnership for New Americans has a report. I really highly recommend people take a look at that. There's suggestions for getting people out to vote, which is very important in this upcoming election. Also, I really want to make a plug for the census. The time to respond was cut short from October 31st to the end of this month. It is so important for our communities that everyone be counted. Every person that's counted on the census means about $2,800 in federal funding to local communities. If you count that over 10 years, that's $28,000 per person that's not counted that we lose out on. So it's really important that everyone register with the census. And this is a way of getting involved civically that doesn't require a person to be a citizen. Everyone can register and should register for the census. We have so much at stake. Minnesota could lose a congressional seat if we don't count everyone. So there's a lot at stake. So I really encourage everyone to really promote the census and get as many people counted as we can, including the undocumented. I know there's a lot of fear in our communities, but and there's been a lot of federal action that kind of promotes that fear and encourages others to promote fear. So the documentation that or the information they provide is protected by law. It can't be released for 70 years. So there are some real safeguards, and I think we really do need to promote the census. With that said, I don't think we have any other questions, so I'd really like to put a reminder out that we will be doing additional sessions on naturalization, starting with a workshop in October where we'll really kind of dig into the nuts and bolts of how do you apply for citizenship, how do you find programs to learn English and study for the naturalization test. And that'll be coming. We'll be sending it out sometime in the first or second week of October. We'd hopefully like to bring in some additional community partners to come discuss those areas as well. So please look for notice of that session in the coming weeks. I'd like to really thank everybody on the panel today who spoke, and I appreciate Michelle and Corleen taking some time to join us here in St. Paul, even though it's virtually. Thank you. And I don't think there were any other questions, but anything else either Michelle or Corleen would like to add?
Well, you have our contact information. I think that the links to our offices were put in the chat. From the standpoint of the Office of Immigrant and Refugee Affairs, please don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions on immigration-related matters. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Thank you. Have a great day. Bye.